My name is Melissa Turner, and on the day I finally married the man who healed my broken heart, my only son couldn't be bothered to show up. The morning started perfect. Savannah sunlight cutting through the oak trees at Magnolia Creek Vineyard. String lights still glowing from the night before. My dress hanging on the barn door like it had been waiting years for this exact moment. Because honestly, it had. I was 44 years old, widowed at 36. I raised Tyler alone through middle school, high school, 2 lost jobs, 1 bankruptcy scare, and more instant noodle dinners than I care to admit. And through all of it, I told myself the same thing every single night. Someday, it'll be my turn. That day had finally come. The wedding planner knocked on the barn door at 11. Mrs. Turner, your florist needs you for a second. I stepped outside in my robe, hair half done, and that's when I saw it. The second row. Left side, reserved with a small gold card that read Tyler Turner, sat completely empty. I checked my phone. Nothing. No text, no missed call. Nothing since the "see you there, Mom" he'd sent 2 days earlier. I told myself he was just running late. Traffic from Atlanta, maybe. Or he'd overslept, which wouldn't exactly shock me. So I let the makeup artist finish my face. I let the photographer capture me twirling in that dress. And every 15 minutes, I glanced at that empty gold-lettered chair like it might fill itself if I stared hard enough. By 1 o'clock, guests had started arriving in full. My sister, my co-workers from the flower shop, neighbors I'd known for 20 years. And near the back, hesitating like she wasn't sure she'd been invited at all, stood a young woman in a soft blue dress, twisting a small clutch purse in her hands. Sophie. My late best friend, Grace's daughter. I hadn't seen Sophie in almost 2 years, not since the funeral, if I'm being honest with myself. Grace and I had been inseparable since we were 19 years old, working the same shift at a diner on Bull Street, laughing until our stomachs hurt over nothing at all. Ovarian cancer took her 4 years ago, and something in me had never quite recovered from that either. I walked towards Sophie before I even decided to. "Sweetheart, you came?" She looked nervous, like she wasn't sure she belonged there. "I know Tyler was supposed to walk you down, but my mom always said if anything ever happened, I should show up for you the way she would have." My throat tightened so fast I could barely answer her. Because right then, standing in that empty aisle with a missing groomsman on one side and a promise keeper on the other, I understood something I wasn't ready for yet. The seat with my son's name on it was still empty, and somebody who had absolutely no obligation to be there had just offered to fill it. I had no idea, standing in that barn with mascara threatening to ruin 2 hours of makeup work, that the reason Tyler wasn't answering his phone had nothing to do with traffic at all. The barn door creaked as the wedding planner poked her head back in. 15 minutes, Mrs. Turner. I nodded, forcing a smile I didn't feel. Sophie squeezed my hand once before slipping back to find a seat, and I stood alone with my reflection, wondering how I'd gotten a life so full and so empty at the exact same time. Truth is, Tyler and I hadn't always been like this. 6 years ago, after his father passed, it was just the two of us against the world. He'd sit at the kitchen table doing homework while I closed out the flower shop books. And every night before bed, he'd say the same thing. "We're gonna be okay, Mom." I believed him because he believed it. Then he met Brianna during his junior year at Georgia Southern, and somewhere between graduation and his first real job in Atlanta, my son became someone I had to schedule time with. Sunday calls turned into Sunday texts. Birthday visits turned into birthday flowers. Delivered. Never handed to me himself. I told myself that was just what happened when kids grew up. I told myself a lot of things. When I met Daniel 18 months ago, out of all places, a hardware store where I was buying paint for the shop's front window, I didn't expect anything to come of it. He was kind in a way that didn't announce itself. The kind of man who remembered how I took my coffee after asking once. When I told Tyler I was seeing someone, he'd said, "That's great, Mom. Whatever makes you happy," in the exact tone people use when they've already stopped listening. I should have noticed then. I didn't want to. A soft knock pulled me back. My sister Renee stepped in, already dabbing at her eyes. "You look like Mama did on her wedding day." I laughed despite myself. "Don't make me cry before I even walk out there." She helped me adjust my veil, and for a moment, neither of us mentioned the empty chair, though I knew she'd seen it too. "Have you tried calling him again?" she finally asked. I had, 4 times, straight to voicemail every time. That same cheerful recording of Tyler's voice saying he'd call right back. I'd stopped believing that particular promise around the 3rd try. "He'll have a reason," I said, mostly to convince myself. Renee's face did something complicated, something between pity and anger, before she smoothed it into a gentle smile. "Sophie's out there. She keeps checking on you through the door." That small detail undid something in my chest. Grace's daughter, a girl I hadn't made time for in 2 years, checking on me more in one morning than my own son had in months. The music shifted outside, the quartet moving into position. Someone called my name. I took one last look in the mirror, one last breath, and reached for the bouquet Grace herself would have picked out, white peonies. She always said they meant honest emotion. I had no idea that the moment I stepped through those barn doors, my phone, sitting forgotten on the dressing table, would light up with a message that would explain everything and shatter something I didn't know I was still holding on to. I stepped through the barn doors into golden afternoon light, the string quartet swelling, every face turning toward me. I smiled the way brides are supposed to smile, but part of my mind stayed back on that dressing table, where my phone had just lit up. Daniel stood waiting at the end of the aisle, and the moment our eyes met, something in me settled. Whatever was happening with Tyler, I told myself, this moment still belonged to me. I walked past Renee, past neighbors dabbing their eyes, past Sophie, who gave me the smallest, steadiest nod, like she was reminding me she was there. The ceremony was simple, exactly how Daniel and I wanted it. No enormous production, just people who loved us and vows that felt earned rather than rehearsed. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," I heard the applause. I felt Daniel's hand tighten around mine, and for a few seconds, Tyler's empty chair didn't matter at all. It mattered again the second the reception started. I checked my phone the moment I had a private minute, tucked behind the dessert table, still in my dress, veil pinned back. One text from Tyler. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'll explain everything. Please don't hate me." No explanation, no details, just an apology shaped like a locked door. I typed back with shaking hands. "Are you okay? Where are you?" The message showed, delivered, then nothing. I stood there staring at the screen until Sophie found me. "You okay?" she asked gently. I showed her the text. She read it twice, her eyebrows pulling together. "That doesn't sound like him ignoring you. That sounds like something happened?" I hadn't thought of it that way. I'd been so wrapped up in hurt that I hadn't considered fear. "Have you talked to Brianna?" Sophie asked. I hadn't. I hadn't even thought to. My hands were still trembling as I called her. It rang twice before she picked up, and the second I heard her voice, I knew Sophie was right to worry. "Melissa, thank God. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you." My stomach dropped. "Tell me what? Is Tyler okay?" There was a pause, the kind that stretches a second into an eternity. He's okay now. But this morning, on his way to Savannah, there was an accident on I-16. He's fine, Melissa, I promise. Just some cuts and a concussion. But his phone was destroyed, and they kept him at the hospital for observation. He's been trying to borrow someone's phone all day to reach you. I pressed my hand against the dessert table to steady myself. Every assumption I'd made that morning, every quiet resentment I'd been nursing since I noticed that empty chair, collapsed all at once. "I'm coming," I said. "Right now." Brianna's voice cracked. "Melissa, wait. There's something else you need to know before you get here." I held my breath, phone pressed hard against my ear. "What else, Brianna? Tell me." She hesitated, and I heard her exhale slowly, like she'd been holding this in for hours. "The accident happened because Tyler swerved to avoid another car. He wasn't hurt bad, but the woman in the other vehicle, she's 7 months pregnant. She's stable, the baby's fine. But Tyler wouldn't leave the scene until he knew she was okay. That's part of why it took so long. The police report, the ambulance, all of it. He kept telling everyone, 'Tell my mom I'm sorry. Tell my mom I'm sorry,' over and over. My eyes filled instantly. He was thinking about me the whole time. Melissa, he cried more about missing your wedding than he did about the accident itself. He kept saying you finally deserved something good, and he wasn't there for it. I told her I'd be there within the hour. And when I hung up, Sophie was still standing beside me, waiting without asking a single question. I didn't have to explain. She just wrapped her arms around me and let me shake against her shoulder for a moment before pulling back. "Go," she said. "I'll handle things here. Nobody's going anywhere without knowing where their bride is." Daniel found us seconds later, already reading the truth on my face. When I told him, he didn't hesitate. "We're going. Both of us. Right now." We reached Memorial Hospital 40 minutes later, me still in my wedding dress, veil bunched in my fist like a bouquet of its own. Tyler was sitting up in a hospital bed, a bandage above his eyebrow, his eyes red and swollen from more than just the accident. "Mom!" His voice cracked completely. "I ruined your wedding." I crossed the room and took his face in both hands, the way I used to when he was small enough to carry. "You didn't ruin anything. You saved someone's life today. I wasn't there for you. You were exactly where you needed to be." He broke down completely then, and I held him the way I had 1,000 times before. Except this time, it was my son who needed holding, still in my wedding dress, still smelling faintly of peonies and hospital antiseptic. 3 weeks later, Daniel and I hosted a small backyard gathering. String lights hung between the pecan trees, so Tyler could finally walk me down an aisle, even if it was just 20 feet of grass toward the man I loved. Sophie stood beside me the entire time, holding flowers from her mother's favorite garden. Tyler squeezed my hand before letting go. "Grace would be proud of both of us today," he whispered, nodding towards Sophie. He was right, and somehow, in that small backyard full of the people who mattered most, my wedding day finally felt complete. exactly the way it was always supposed to.